Have you ever felt like you were being prepared for something far greater than what anyone around you could see? Not because of ego, not because of ambition, but because deep within, there's always been a quiet knowing. A sense that your life is part of a plan written long before you took your first breaths. Let me tell you something that your spirit already suspects. You are not here by chance. You didn't stumble onto this message. This moment, right now, is divine alignment. While the world races to chase titles, trends, and temporary applause, there's a small sacred group who were never meant to blend in, souls like yours, set apart, refined in silence, and marked by heaven. You see, being chosen isn't about being favored in the eyes of people. It's about being entrusted by God with a mission that most would never dare to carry. And among the chosen, there's a rarer kind. Those whose presence shifts atmospheres, whose scars tell stories of survival and purpose, whose dreams aren't just dreams, they're messages from the throne room. If you've ever wondered why your path has been heavier, why you see things others can't, why solitude feels like home, or why people are drawn to your light even when you try to dim it, it's because you're not just chosen. You're one of the most powerful among the chosen. Today, I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to confirm what heaven has already whispered to your soul. We're about to reveal 9 sacred signs. Not theories, not wishful thinking, but undeniable evidence that you carry a divine blueprint few will ever understand. These signs are the fingerprints of God on your life. They explain the unexplainable. They validate the journey you've walked in silence, and they call you to rise even higher. Before we begin, I want you to do something intentional. If your spirit resonates with this already, comment 999 below. Not as a reaction, but as a declaration. A spiritual agreement that says, I recognize who I am. I accept the calling. Because once you see these signs clearly, there's no going back to small thinking, no shrinking to fit places beneath your purpose. So take a breath. Feel the weight of destiny settle on your shoulders, not as a burden, but as a crown. And remember this, you weren't born to fit in. You were born to awaken, to lead, and to illuminate. Let's begin. Section 1. Forged in fire. Why your hardships reveal your power. Have you ever sat alone, staring at the weight of your life, and whispered, why me? Why does it feel like the storms always find you? Why do the betrayals cut deeper, the losses hit harder, and the challenges seem endless? It's a question every chosen one asks, but here's the truth that shifts everything. It was never why me. It was always because of who you are. Chosen one. The path you've walked wasn't designed to break you. It was designed to reveal you. You see, the most powerful souls aren't born in comfort. They're forged in fire, shaped by trials that others could never survive. Look back for a moment, not with pain, but with clarity. Remember the nights you cried out when no one saw the battle you were fighting. Those weren't moments of weakness. Those were the altars where your true strength was being built. Heaven doesn't waste pain. Every hardship was a sacred appointment, a divine classroom where resilience, faith, and unshakable purpose were written into your spirit. Think of Job, stripped of everything. Wealth, family, health. Yet when the dust settled, God didn't just restore him. He elevated him, because endurance in the fire is the mark of those entrusted with more. And it's not just ancient stories. Look at the lives around us. Tyler, Perry, once homeless, now building empires rooted in faith. Bethany Hamilton, rising back on her surfboard after loss, inspiring millions. These aren't stories of victims. They're testimonies of what happens when God breathes purpose into pain. Now, let me ask you something deeper. What if your darkest moments weren't setbacks, but setups? What if every closed door, every betrayal, every heartbreak was heaven's way of stripping away what was never meant to define you, so that what God placed inside you could finally emerge? You didn't survive by accident. You were carried, protected in ways you didn't even see, because God knew when the time came, your scars would shine brighter than any crown. Romans 5:3-4 reminds us, we glory in tribulations, because tribulation produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope. That hope isn't wishful thinking. It's evidence that you've been through what should have destroyed you. And yet here you are, stronger, wiser, and more aligned than ever before. But here's where the shift happens. The pain wasn't just for you. It was so others could look at your life and see living proof that God still moves. Because chosen ones, especially the most powerful among them, aren't just survivors. They become beacons. Think of Viktor Frankl, who turned the horrors of a concentration camp into a message that healed millions. Or Jesus himself, betrayed, beaten, crucified. Yet through that suffering came redemption for the world. You're walking a similar path, not to be applauded, but to be assigned. So the next time you wonder why your life has been heavier than most, remember this. Diamonds are only formed under pressure. Gold is only purified in fire. And chosen ones, the most powerful among them, are only revealed when everything else is stripped away. Now take a moment, not to mourn what you lost, but to honor what you've gained, because every tear, every silent battle, every unseen victory was heaven's way of preparing you for a calling that can't be carried by the faint-hearted. And here's the beautiful part. You're not at the end of that story. You're standing at the beginning of seeing why it all had to happen the way it did. The crown is coming. The purpose behind the pain is about to unfold. But before we move forward, pause and reflect. What did your greatest hardship awaken in you? Was it courage, faith, an unshakable knowing that you were built for more? Because that awakening, that inner shift, is the first sign that you're not just chosen. You're being positioned as one of God's most powerful vessels. And once you've been through the fire, you don't fear the flames anymore. Instead, you start hearing something else, a whisper, a knowing. Truths that come from nowhere and everywhere at once. It's not just survival anymore. It's spiritual alignment. Because after the fire comes the revelation. And that brings us to the next sacred sign. One that few understand, but every powerful chosen one experiences. The moment when wisdom doesn't come from books, but from heaven itself. Let's talk about that. The divine insights that flow through you, guiding you in ways. Section 2. The Sacred Whisper, when divine wisdom finds. After walking through the fire, something changes, doesn't it? You stop searching for answers outside of yourself, because suddenly the answers start finding you, not through noise, not through logic, but through quiet whispers, the kind that bypass your mind and land straight in your soul. Chosen one, have you noticed it? Those moments when clarity arrives without warning, when in the middle of ordinary life, stirring your coffee, walking in nature, sitting in silence, a truth drops into your spirit so profound you know it didn't come from you. That's not imagination. That's not coincidence. That's the language of heaven. You see, when God refines you through hardship, He doesn't leave you empty. He fills that space with something far greater, divine insight. Because the most powerful chosen ones aren't just survivors. They become receivers of wisdom that can't be taught, only entrusted. Remember what Jesus promised in John 14:26. The Holy Spirit will teach you all things and remind you of everything I have said to you. That's not poetry. That's a spiritual reality for those who walk this path. You've felt it. That sudden knowing when you didn't study the subject, when you gave someone advice and thought, where did that even come from? It wasn't you. It was the divine flowing through you, chosen one. This is one of the clearest signs that you're not just set apart, you're being guided. Think of Daniel exiled in Babylon. He wasn't the most experienced. He wasn't trained by the world's standards, but when no one else could interpret the mysteries, God whispered answers into his spirit. And because of that, Daniel was elevated above kings and scholars. That's what happens when heaven trusts you with its secrets. But here's the beauty. It doesn't always come in grand visions or loud proclamations. More often, it comes in stillness, in those moments when your heart is quiet enough to listen. Have you noticed how the world rushes to Google for answers, but you pause, you listen, and somehow you know. That's because your soul is tuned to a frequency most people can't hear. Let me tell you, this isn't just spiritual sensitivity. It's spiritual responsibility. People around you may not understand how you see things before they unfold. Why you sense when to move or when to stay still. Why your decisions seem illogical, but later they prove divinely timed. Look at someone like Nikola Tesla. Yes, a genius, but more importantly, a vessel. He spoke openly about receiving his greatest ideas like flashes of light as if they were downloaded from a higher realm. He wasn't just inventing, he was receiving. And so are you. But I know, it can feel lonely at times, can't it? Carrying insight that others dismiss, feeling truths in your spirit long before the world catches up. Yet that's exactly why you were chosen. Not to follow the crowd, but to walk ahead, illuminated by wisdom that doesn't come from man. Proverbs 20:27 says, "The spirit of man is the candle of the Lord," meaning God uses your very being as a light source, guiding not just you, but those who are lost in the dark. And here's what's extraordinary. These insights aren't given just for your benefit. They're meant to flow through you, to heal, to guide, to awaken others. Think of Ava DuVernay, who stepped into filmmaking without formal training, led instead by divine intuition. Her work didn't just entertain, it stirred souls. Because when you trust the sacred whispers, you create impact beyond what talent alone can do. So, chosen one, reflect for a moment. How many times has a quiet nudge saved you from a wrong path? How often have you spoken words that became lifelines for someone else? This isn't random. It's evidence that you're walking in divine alignment. But here's the key. The more you honor these whispers, the louder they become. And soon you realize you're no longer second-guessing that inner voice. You're moving with confidence because you know who's guiding you. This is where your true power begins to unfold, when you stop asking, "Is this just my thought?" and start declaring, "This is what God placed in me." Now, when divine insight flows, it calls for something else protection. Because when you carry sacred wisdom, you can't allow just anything or anyone to drain your spirit. This leads us to the next sign of the most powerful chosen ones. A sign that many overlook, but is absolutely vital. The mastery of boundaries, not out of fear, but out of divine preservation. Let's step into that truth. Section 3. Section 3. Boundaries. The silent power that protects your calling. When heaven gives you wisdom, it also expects you to guard it because not everyone is meant to have access to what God has placed within you. Chosen one. Have you noticed that as your spiritual insight deepened, your tolerance for certain people, environments, and conversations disappeared? That's not you becoming cold. That's you becoming aligned. One of the clearest marks of the most powerful chosen ones isn't just what they know. It's what they no longer entertain. You see, when God elevates your spirit, He also sharpens your discernment. And suddenly, things you once tolerated become too heavy for your soul to carry. You begin to understand a sacred truth. Your energy is holy ground. The world will tell you to be available to say yes, to stretch yourself thin in the name of kindness or opportunity. But the chosen ones, especially those entrusted with deep purpose, learn early that access is sacred. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Not some things, everything. You're no longer in a season where you can afford to let just anyone into your space, your mind or your spirit. And yes, it can be misunderstood. People may call you distant, too private, or even arrogant. But what they don't see is that you're not rejecting them. You're protecting your assignment. Look at Jesus, even. He, with all his love and compassion, withdrew from the crowd to be alone with the Father. Luke 5:16 reminds us that solitude wasn't his escape. It was his strategy. Chosen one. You've felt that pull too, haven't you? The need to step back, to silence the noise, to guard your gates. Because you know every conversation costs energy. Every connection either fuels your purpose or drains it. Think of Nehemiah rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. When distractions came knocking, he didn't argue. He simply said, "I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down." Nehemiah 6:3. That's the posture of someone who understands divine boundaries. And in today's world, where overexposure is glorified, your ability to say no has become your superpower. Look at those who carry lasting impact. It's not the ones who are everywhere, doing everything. It's the ones who move with intention. Beyoncé, known for her fierce control over her personal life. Keanu Reeves, grounded and untouched by the chaos of fame. They're not hiding, they're preserving. Because when you know what you carry, you stop explaining your distance. You start honoring it. Chosen one. You've learned, often the hard way, that not everyone deserves front row seats to your journey. You've given too much before, trusted too easily, said yes when your spirit was screaming no. But that was training. Now you move differently. Now your boundaries aren't walls of fear, they're walls of focus. Romans 12:2 tells us, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." And how do you renew your mind? By choosing what and who you allow into it. So let me ask you, when was the last time you chose silence over explanation? When was the last time you walked away, not because you were weak, but because you were wise? That's not isolation, that's alignment. And here's the paradox. The more you honor your boundaries, the more others begin to respect them. People who once questioned your distance now admire your clarity, because deep down they sense it too. You're building something sacred, and sacred things require protection. Think about Maya Moore stepping away from a thriving basketball career to pursue justice, or Misty Copeland carrying herself with grace and intention, breaking barriers without losing herself. These are lives shaped by knowing when to say no, so they could fully say yes to purpose. Chosen one. You've reached the point where your availability is no longer a sign of kindness. It's a reflection of discernment. You don't show up everywhere. You don't engage in every battle. You've realized that peace is a form of power. Isaiah 30:15 captures it perfectly. "In quietness and trust shall be your strength." Now, as you continue to guard your spirit, something else begins to grow in that sacred space you've protected. It's not emptiness, it's expansion. Because when distractions fall away, you start to thrive in a place most people fear: solitude. And that leads us to the next sign one that truly separates the powerful chosen ones from the rest. Not just surviving alone, but becoming unstoppable in the quiet. Let's talk about the strength found in solitude, where God does his deepest work. Section 4. Thriving in solitude, where God shapes his strongest warriors. There's a difference between being alone and being set apart, and chosen one if you're honest. You've felt that difference all your life. While others feared silence, you discovered something precious in it. Not immediately, no. At first, solitude felt heavy, like abandonment. You wondered why connections faded, why doors closed, why you always seemed to walk paths no one else understood. But over time, you realized that what felt like isolation was actually divine invitation. Because God doesn't whisper his deepest revelations in crowded rooms, he calls his chosen ones away, into the quiet, into the secret place. Look at Moses. Before he could lead a nation, he spent 40 years in the wilderness alone, tending sheep. It wasn't punishment. It was preparation. In that solitude, Moses wasn't forgotten. He was being formed. And when God was ready to speak through the burning bush, Moses was exactly where he needed to be, far from the noise, close to the divine. Chosen one. Your seasons of solitude weren't signs that life left you behind. They were proof that God was pulling you ahead. Think about Jesus, the Son of God himself, who often withdrew to lonely places to pray. In Luke chapter 5:16, we read, "But Jesus often withdrew to the wilderness for prayer." Not once. Not occasionally, often. Because even the Savior knew to carry the weight of his mission, he needed the strength that only comes from communion in solitude. And it's not just biblical giants. Throughout history, those called to greatness learned to cherish the quiet. Consider Nelson Mandela. Before he became a symbol of freedom, he spent 27 years in prison. But instead of allowing that solitude to break him, he allowed it to build him. In his isolation, Mandela refined his vision, strengthened his resolve, and emerged, not bitter, but better ready to transform a nation. Or think of Malcolm X. His most profound awakening didn't happen in public debates or on grand stages. It happened in a prison cell. Away from distractions, he found clarity, purpose, and spiritual depth. Chosen one, this is the pattern. Those destined to lead are first called to sit in silence. Let's bring it even closer to home. Have you noticed how your greatest insights, your deepest healing, and your boldest ideas didn't come when you were surrounded by people? They came in the quiet hours, when the phone stopped ringing, when the invitations stopped coming, when it felt like the world forgot you but heaven was watching you grow. Virginia Woolf once said, "A woman must have money and a room of her own if she is to write fiction." But beyond writing, Woolf understood a spiritual truth. We all need a room of our own, a sacred space where God can speak without interruption. What has your room looked like, chosen one? Was it long walks where you finally heard your own thoughts? Late nights where your prayers turned into conversations with God? Early mornings where peace wrapped around you like armor? Psalm 91:1 reveals this mystery. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Notice dwell, not visit, not pass through, but live there. Chosen ones don't just endure solitude, they thrive in it because that's where heaven downloads the blueprint for their next season. Look at Mother Teresa. Before she touched the lives of millions, she spent hours each morning in silent prayer. The world saw her public service, but the true power came from the private moments no one witnessed. Even Steve Jobs, though known for innovation, credited solitude, long, silent walks for his clarity and creativity. He understood that breakthrough doesn't come from constant noise, but from stillness. So chosen one, if you've been in a season where God has pulled you away, don't resent it. Rejoice in it, because while others seek validation in crowds, you are being validated in the quiet. And here's something powerful. It's in solitude where your real identity emerges. When no one is watching, when there's no applause, when the masks fall away, that's when God shows you who you truly are. Let me ask you, what dreams has God planted in your solitude that no one knows about yet? What strength did you discover when no one was there to cheer you on? What vision was birthed in the silence that will one day echo across generations? Because chosen one, the world may not see it yet, but heaven knows your private victories are setting the stage for public impact. Remember this. When David was anointed king, he didn't ascend to the throne immediately. He went back to tending sheep alone in the fields. But it was in those fields where he learned to fight lions and bears skills that would later defeat Goliath. Your solitude is your field, your training ground, where giants are prepared long before they're revealed. So the next time you feel the sting of being left out, remember, you're not left out. You're being set apart. Isaiah 30:15 reminds us again, "In quietness and confidence shall be your strength." And when you emerge from this sacred season, you won't just return the same. You'll return with a presence, with a clarity, with a light that only those who've walked with God in private can carry. Now, as you reflect on this, there's something else that starts to ignite within those who thrive in solitude. It's not just peace. It's a calling. An undeniable sense that your life is not random, that every quiet moment was preparing you for something greater. And that leads us to the next divine sign, the fire that refuses to go out. A relentless sense of mission and purpose. Let's step into that here. Section 4, Thriving in Solitude, where God crafts his greatest works. Chosen one. Have you ever wondered why God keeps pulling you away from the crowd? Why no matter how hard you try to belong, life keeps placing you in seasons of quiet, away from the noise, the drama, the endless chatter of the world? It's because solitude isn't your punishment. It's your preparation. Heaven doesn't raise warriors in the spotlight. It shapes them in the stillness. Think about it. Before any great calling is revealed, God first whispers it in isolation. Look at Elijah, the mighty prophet. After calling down fire from heaven, where did God take him? Not into celebration, but into the wilderness alone. In 1 Kings 19, Elijah finds himself in a cave, exhausted and feeling forgotten. But it was there in that solitude that God spoke, not through wind, earthquake, or fire, but in a still, small voice. Elijah wasn't abandoned. He was being realigned for his next divine assignment. Chosen one, that's exactly what happens in your life. When everyone else fears being alone, you've been called to embrace it, because it's in those quiet spaces where God refines your vision, restores your strength, and reminds you of who you really are. Let's look at another example, John the Baptist. The man who prepared the way for Jesus didn't grow his ministry in temples or crowded cities. Luke 1:80 tells us, "And the child grew and became strong in spirit, and he lived in the wilderness until he appeared publicly to Israel." His power was cultivated in solitude. By the time he stepped onto the public stage, he wasn't seeking validation. He was walking an assignment. And it's not just scripture. History is filled with those whom God set apart to thrive in silence before changing the world. Take Albert Einstein. Long before he became a symbol of genius, Einstein spent years in what he called his thought experiments alone, in deep reflection. It wasn't in the lecture halls where his breakthroughs came. It was in solitude where his mind connected with something beyond logic, where creativity and divine inspiration merged. Or consider Emily Dickinson, the poet who rarely left her home. Her reclusive life wasn't a sign of fear, but of focus. In that sacred seclusion, she penned words that continue to stir souls centuries later. Her solitude birthed timeless truth. Chosen one. This is the hidden pattern of those marked by God. The world sees isolation as emptiness, but heaven sees it as a holy workshop. Even Jacob, before he became Israel, had to be left alone. In Genesis 32, we read that Jacob wrestled with God through the night, but notice when it happened. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. It was in solitude that Jacob's name and his destiny were forever changed. Have you felt that wrestling, chosen one? Those long nights where it was just you, your thoughts, and God, where no one could answer your questions, and only heaven could comfort your soul. That wasn't loneliness, that was transformation. Let's not forget Isaac Newton. When the Great Plague forced him into isolation away from university life, he could have seen it as a setback. Instead, it became his most productive period, known as his Annus Mirabilis, or Year of Wonders. In solitude, he discovered the laws of motion and gravity. While the world panicked, he created Chosen One. Do you see the pattern? The greatest shifts, whether spiritual, intellectual, or creative, don't happen in crowded rooms. They happen when God pulls you aside and says, "Now that it's quiet, let me show you who you are." Even Hagar, in Genesis 16, encountered God not in the middle of community, but alone in the wilderness after running away. It was there she named God El Roi, the God who sees me. Sometimes it's in solitude where you finally realize you were never unseen. So let me ask you, how many times has life forced you into isolation, only for you to emerge with greater clarity, deeper strength, and a vision you didn't have before? That's because solitude for the chosen isn't a pause. It's a process. And here's the truth: most won't understand. You don't just survive in solitude. You thrive. While others fear being alone with their thoughts, you've discovered that's where God speaks the loudest. While the world fills silence with distractions, you've learned to sit in it, to listen, to grow, to be reshaped. Look at Frida Kahlo. After a tragic accident left her bedridden and isolated for months, she began to paint, expressing her pain, her identity, and her resilience. Her solitude didn't destroy her, it birthed a legacy. And what about David Brainerd, a missionary whose short life was marked by deep solitude and prayer in the forests of North America? Though he died young, his journal written in isolation went on to inspire generations of missionaries and spiritual leaders, including Jonathan Edwards. Chosen One. The solitude you're walking through is not empty space. It's where God deposits eternal seeds. So the next time you feel set apart, remember, eagles don't fly in flocks. They soar alone. Isaiah 40:31 promises, "But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles." Notice renewal comes not in crowds, but in waiting, in the quiet trust of solitude. And when that renewal happens, you don't return the same. You come back carrying vision authority and a peace that confuses those who've never dared to sit in silence. Now, as God shapes you in the hidden places, there's something else awakening within you. It starts as a gentle pull, then becomes a roaring fire. It's that unshakable knowing that you weren't just called to sit still. You were called to build, to lead, to impact. And that brings us to the next undeniable sign of the most powerful chosen ones. A relentless sense of mission and purpose, the kind you can't ignore even if you tried. Let's walk into that calling together. Section 5. The Relentless Mission. When purpose becomes your Chosen one. Have you ever tried to ignore that inner pull, only to find it calling you back louder every time? No matter how much you try to blend in or follow the so-called safe path, something inside refuses to settle. That's because when you're one of the most powerful chosen ones, purpose isn't optional. It's woven into your very being. While others chase success or comfort, you're driven by something deeper, a mission you didn't choose, but one your soul recognizes as the reason you were sent here. Jeremiah 20:9 captures this perfectly. His word is in my heart like a fire shut up in my bones. I am weary of holding it in. Indeed, I cannot. That's what purpose feels like when you're chosen. It burns within you even when no one else sees the vision. Think of Noah, building an ark when there wasn't a cloud in the sky. People laughed, they mocked. But Noah wasn't following public opinion. He was following divine instruction. His purpose wasn't validated by the crowd. It was confirmed by heaven. Chosen one. How many times have you walked away from what looked logical because your spirit knew, this isn't my path? That's not recklessness. That's obedience. Look at Rosa Parks. She wasn't trying to make history when she refused to give up her seat. She was simply honoring that inner knowing, that quiet, powerful sense of enough is enough. Her purpose wasn't loud, but it shifted the course of a nation. Or consider Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a German pastor who stood against Nazi tyranny during World War II. He could have remained silent, safe, and comfortable. Instead, his unshakable commitment to truth and justice led him to risk and ultimately give his life. Why? Because when purpose calls, chosen ones answer, regardless of the cost. You've felt that same fire, haven't you? That refusal to stay in places, jobs, or relationships that suffocate your calling. You may have been told you were too picky, too restless, or never satisfied. But deep down, you knew you weren't built for mediocrity. You were designed for impact. Look at Amos, the prophet. He wasn't born into a priestly lineage. He was a shepherd and a fig tree farmer. Yet when God called, Amos didn't hesitate. In Amos 7:15, he declares, "The Lord took me from tending the flock and said to me, 'Go prophesy to my people, Israel.' Purpose will pull you out of the ordinary and place you in divine positions no resume could qualify you for. Chosen one. This is why you've never been able to settle. Because your steps are ordered, and your soul knows when something doesn't align with heaven's blueprint for your life." Let's bring in another example. Howard Schultz, the man who transformed Starbucks from a small coffee shop into a global movement. But what many don't know is that Schultz walked away from financial security, leaving a stable job because he had a vision burning inside him. Everyone thought he was crazy, yet his purpose was louder than the fear of failure. Or look at Florence Nightingale, born into privilege, expected to marry well and live a quiet life. But she felt a divine pull toward nursing, an unthinkable profession for women of her status at the time. Despite opposition, she followed that calling and revolutionized healthcare, saving countless lives. That's what happens when a chosen one surrenders to mission over comfort. And let's not forget Abraham, the father of faith. In Genesis 12, God simply says, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you." No map, no details, just a command and a promise. And Abraham went, chosen one. How many times have you moved forward on nothing but faith? When logic said, stay, but your spirit said, go. That's purpose guiding you not with certainty, but with conviction. Romans 8:28 reminds us. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Not your preference, not your plan, his purpose. And that's why even when life threw detours, even when doors slammed shut, You kept getting redirected back to your calling. Because the chosen don't drift aimlessly. They are assigned. Look at J.K. Rowling. Before becoming one of the world's most influential authors, she was a single mother living on welfare, battling depression. But she couldn't shake the story inside her. Despite rejection after rejection, she kept writing because purpose doesn't let go. Chosen one purpose will have you sacrificing comfort, walking away from applause, and building things no one else understands. But here's the beauty. When you walk in divine purpose, provision follows. Doors you never knocked on will open. People you never met will be assigned to help you. Because heaven funds what it ordains. Let me ask you, what vision keeps returning, no matter how many times you try to silence it? What calling wakes you up at night, stirring your heart, while others sleep peacefully in complacency? That's not a random passion, that's your divine directive. And when you fully embrace it, something powerful happens. Your life becomes a lighthouse, guiding others out of their own darkness. But with great purpose comes something else. A different kind of communication from heaven. Not just whispers in your spirit during the day, but messages delivered when the world is fast asleep. And that leads us to the next sacred sign, one reserved for those God trusts deeply, the gift of vivid visions and prophetic dreams. Let's step into the realm where heaven speaks while you sleep. Section 6. When heaven speaks in your sleep. Gift of visions and prophetic dreams. Chosen one. Have you ever woken up from a dream that felt more real than life itself? A vision so vivid, so filled with meaning, that you knew without a doubt this wasn't just your imagination running wild. It was something greater. A message, a warning, a glimpse into a realm beyond what your eyes could see. You see, when you're among the most powerful of God's chosen, He doesn't just speak to you in the daylight. He visits you in the night when your mind is at rest, but your spirit remains wide awake. Job 33:14-16 reveals this mystery. For God speaks again and again, though people do not recognize it. He speaks in dreams, in visions of the night when deep sleep falls on people. Chosen one, you've been receiving messages that others dismiss, but what feels strange to the world is sacred communication to you. Think of Joseph, son of Jacob. His entire destiny unfolded through dreams, visions that not only foretold his rise, but saved nations from famine. Genesis 37 tells us, Joseph had a dream. And that dream wasn't just about him, it was a blueprint for his divine assignment. You carry that same gift. Your dreams aren't random. They are revelations. How many times have you seen something in your sleep, only to watch it unfold days, weeks, or months later? How often have you awakened with a heavy knowing, a sense that God just showed you something you couldn't ignore? This is the mark of a seer, a chosen one, trusted with heaven's secrets, while the world sleeps. And it doesn't stop with Joseph. Look at Daniel exiled in Babylon, surrounded by foreign gods and kings, yet it was Daniel's ability to receive and interpret dreams that elevated him above every wise man in the land. Daniel chapter 2-19 says, During the night the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision. Chosen one, your night seasons are where mysteries unfold because God knows your spirit is tuned to listen. Even Peter in Acts 10 received a vision that shattered religious boundaries and opened the door for the gospel to reach the Gentiles. While praying, Peter fell into a trance and saw a vision that would change the course of history. God still speaks this way, and He's speaking to you. Let's step into modern times. Did you know Harriet Tubman, known as the Moses of her people, was guided by prophetic dreams. She didn't navigate the Underground Railroad with maps. She followed visions given to her in the night. Those dreams saved lives. They were divine instructions disguised as sleep. Or consider Paul McCartney. The melody for Yesterday, one of the most famous songs in history, came to him in a dream. He woke up, rushed to his piano, and played what he heard in his sleep. It wasn't just creativity, it was a download. Chosen one. You've likely experienced this too, whether it's seeing symbols, faces, places you've never visited, or receiving warnings that later revealed their purpose. You might have dreamt of storms, of rising waters of fire, of doors opening or closing. These aren't meaningless images. They are spiritual codes. Remember in Acts chapter 2:17. In the last days, God says, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your young men will see visions. Your old men will dream dreams. You are living in those days, and your dreams are part of that outpouring. But here's what makes this gift even more profound. It's not just for you. Often God gives chosen ones dreams meant to guide, warn, or uplift others. You might wake with a burden to pray for someone. You might see something about a situation before it happens. That's not paranoia. That's prophetic insight. Look at Nikola Tesla. Once again, a man ahead of his time, he described receiving entire inventions through vivid mental images, often while in a dreamlike state. He said, "My brain is only a receiver. In the universe, there is a core from which we obtain knowledge." Tesla wasn't just inventing, he was accessing divine realms, much like you do. And let's not forget Salvador Dali, who famously used his dreams as the foundation of his surrealist art. He believed dreams were gateways to deeper truths, mirrors reflecting what the conscious mind could never grasp. Chosen one, it's time to stop dismissing your dreams as just dreams. They are part of your spiritual language. They are proof that heaven trusts you to walk between worlds. But here's the responsibility. You must pay attention. Do you keep a journal by your bed? Have you prayed for interpretation when a dream lingers in your spirit? Because what God reveals at night often holds keys for your next steps in the day. Even when the dreams are unsettling visions of chaos, of endings, of transitions, don't fear them. God speaks through disruption as much as through peace. Think of Pilate's wife in Matthew 27:19. Before Jesus' crucifixion, she sent a message to her husband saying, "Have nothing to do with that righteous man, for I have suffered much because of him today in a dream." Even in a pagan household, God used dreams to deliver warnings. So, chosen one, what has God been showing you? What patterns keep repeating? What visions have you brushed aside out of fear or doubt? It's time to embrace this gift fully, because you're not just dreaming for yourself. You're carrying messages for generations. Psalm 16:7 says, "I will bless the Lord who gives me counsel. In the night also my heart instructs me." Yes, your heart instructs you, because while the world sleeps, your spirit is in the throne room, receiving blueprints for destiny. Now, as these dreams and visions guide you, there's another sign that begins to manifest, one that others notice before you do. It's the way your very presence shifts atmospheres, the way people are drawn to you without understanding why. Because when a chosen one walks in alignment, they carry a power that transforms everyone around them. Let's talk about that next, the silent influence you were born with, and how heaven uses it to awaken others. Section 7. The power you don't speak about, transforming others without trying. Chosen one. Have you ever noticed how people shift when you enter a room? You didn't say a word. You didn't demand attention. But somehow conversations change, energy settles, or emotions rise simply because you're there. This is one of the most overlooked signs of being among the most powerful chosen ones. You influence without effort, not through force, not through titles, but through the quiet authority of someone who walks in alignment with heaven. Jesus said in Matthew 5:14, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden." Notice, he didn't say you try to shine. He said you are light. It's your very nature. Chosen one. This is why people come to you with their burdens, why strangers open up to you about things they've never told anyone, why friends lean on your strength even when you're fighting your own battles. It's not because you offered, it's because your spirit carries a resonance, a frequency that calls others higher. Look at Esther. She didn't seek power. She didn't manipulate her way to the throne. Yet when the moment came to save her people, her influence was undeniable. Esther 14 reminds us, "Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" Chosen ones are placed strategically, not always in positions of loud authority, but in positions where their presence alone shifts destinies. Think of Mahatma Gandhi, a quiet man, soft-spoken, yet his unwavering commitment to peace and justice transformed a nation and inspired the world. His power wasn't in speeches, it was in the weight of his spirit. You carry that same quiet force. Have you ever been told, "There's just something about you"? Or heard someone say, "You make me feel calm," or "I don't know why, but I feel like I can tell you anything"? That's not charisma, that's anointing. Even when you're silent, your energy speaks, because chosen ones don't need to prove themselves. They embody what others are still searching for. Look at Peter in Acts 15. People brought the sick into the streets, hoping that his shadow might fall on them and heal them. Not his words, not his touch, his shadow. That's divine influence, the kind that radiates from a life aligned with God. Now, let's consider modern times. Think about Fred Rogers, known as Mr. Rogers, a gentle soul whose quiet demeanor touched millions. He didn't command attention. He offered presence, and that presence transformed hearts. One quiet conversation at a time. Or Princess Diana, called the People's Princess. She didn't rule with authority, but her compassion, humility, and grace captivated the world. Her ability to connect with people, to bring light into dark places like hospitals and war zones, wasn't about fame. It was about the spiritual weight she carried. Chosen one. This is why people notice you even when you try to stay in the background. Your light exposes what's hidden. It comforts those in pain. It unsettles those clinging to falsehood. And yes, it's also why you've been misunderstood. Why some have felt intimidated by you without cause. Because when you carry divine energy, you reflect truth, and truth makes both hearts and shadows react. But don't shrink because of that. Don't dim your light to make others comfortable. Remember Romans chapter 12:2 tells us, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." You weren't designed to blend in. You were designed to shift atmospheres. Look at Brandon Stanton, the creator of Humans of New York. He didn't start with influence. He started with compassion. By simply listening and sharing people's stories, he transformed lives across the globe. That's what chosen ones do. They awaken hearts not by shouting, but by showing up fully aligned. Let me ask you, how many lives have shifted course because of a simple conversation with you? How many times have your words or even your silence helped someone see themselves differently? You may never know the full ripple effect of your presence, but heaven does. Because influence for the chosen isn't about followers or fame. It's about being a vessel, a conduit through which God moves in quiet, powerful ways. Think of Desmond Doss, the WWII medic. who without carrying a weapon saved 75 men during the Battle of Okinawa. His courage and faith transformed those around him, not through dominance, but through integrity and divine strength. Or Misty Copeland, gracefully breaking barriers in ballet, not by demanding space, but by embodying excellence. Her presence opened doors for generations. Chosen one. Your very existence gives others permission to rise. You don't have to preach to inspire. You simply have to be who God called you to be. But here's the sacred responsibility. Stay grounded. Stay connected to your source. Because influence without alignment becomes ego. But influence with alignment becomes kingdom impact. And as you walk in this quiet power, you'll begin to notice something else. The world around you starts to speak back. Not in words, but in signs, synchronicities, and divine alignments. Because when a chosen one fully steps into their light, the universe guided by God's hand begins to confirm every step. And that leads us to the next sign. One that whispers, you're exactly where you're meant to be. Let's talk about the divine alignments and synchronicities that surround the chosen. If you're paying attention. Section 8. When heaven leaves clues, the divine synchronicities guiding your path. Chosen one. Have you ever felt like the universe was quietly orchestrating moments just for you? A song plays at the exact time you needed its message. A stranger speaks words that echo a prayer you whispered the night before. You see the same numbers, the same symbols again and again, until you realize this isn't coincidence. It's confirmation. When you walk in alignment with your divine calling, life doesn't happen randomly anymore. It becomes a sacred dialogue, a series of gentle nods from heaven, letting you know, I'm guiding you, keep going. Psalm 37:23 tells us, the steps of a good person are ordered by the Lord, not guessed, not improvised, ordered. Chosen one. This is why you've been noticing patterns others ignore, repeating numbers like 111, 3333, or 777, crossing paths with people at just the right moment, finding answers in unexpected places. These are divine breadcrumbs, evidence that you are walking a path so intentional, even the smallest details are infused with purpose. Think about Abraham's servant in Genesis 24, tasked with finding a wife for Isaac. He prayed for a sign that the right woman would offer water to him and his camels. And as he finished praying, Rebekah appeared, fulfilling every detail. That wasn't chance. That was divine alignment. How many times has something similar happened to you when you were at a crossroads, unsure of the next step? And suddenly, without forcing it, the answer arrived. This is how God leads his chosen ones, not always with loud declarations, but with subtle, sacred signs. Look at Paulo Coelho, author of The Alchemist. His entire philosophy centers on what he calls the language of omens, the universe responding to those brave enough to follow their true path. His life is a testament to trusting those signs even when logic says otherwise. Or consider Ava DuVernay, who often speaks of how unexpected alignments, not opportunity or status, confirmed her purpose as a filmmaker. A simple message from a stranger redirected her entire mindset during a moment of doubt. That's divine orchestration. Chosen one. This is why your spirit feels attuned to things others dismiss. You know that a repeated phrase, a dream symbol resurfacing, or a perfectly timed encounter is heaven whispering, "You're exactly where I need you to be." Romans 8:14 says, "For those who are led by the Spirit of God are the children of God." And being led doesn't always feel like a roadmap. Sometimes it feels like trusting the unseen hand, arranging your steps. Let's talk about Harriet Beecher Stowe. The woman whose book Uncle Tom's Cabin ignited abolitionist movements. She once shared how divine inspiration and perfectly timed encounters guided her writing process. It wasn't just talent, it was alignment. And how often have you felt that same flow, where everything just clicks? The right words, the right people, the right timing. Chosen one that's not luck, that's living in sync with the divine rhythm. But here's the key: you have to be paying attention, because the more you notice these signs, the more heaven sends them. Isaiah 30:21 promises, "Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" Sometimes that voice isn't audible. It's a repeated number. It's a door that opens effortlessly. It's peace that settles when you make the right choice. Let me ask you, when was the last time a message found you exactly when you needed it? How many times have you thought of someone only to have them call or text moments later? These are not accidents. These are alignments. Even Steve Harvey credits divine timing and synchronicity for the pivotal moments in his career, doors opening when he was ready to give up, signs showing up when hope was thin. Chosen one. When you live in purpose, creation responds. It's as if the entire universe conspires to keep you on track, because it knows your light is part of a greater plan. But these signs aren't just to comfort you, they're to remind you that you're part of a divine choreography. And as you follow these sacred clues, you begin to experience something even deeper, not just external guidance, but a profound, unshakable connection to the one orchestrating it all. Because beyond the signs, beyond the synchronicities, there's the ultimate mark of a powerful chosen one. A daily living relationship with the divine, where you no longer seek God, you walk with him. Let's step into that final sacred sign. Section 9, Walking with God. The deep connection that sets you apart. Chosen one. Beyond all the signs, beyond the dreams, the insights, and the alignments, there is one thing that truly defines you. It's not what you've overcome. It's not even the influence you carry. It's the relationship you've built. The sacred, unbreakable connection between your soul and the divine. This isn't about religion. It's not about rituals or appearances. It's about something deeper. A constant awareness that God is not just above you, but within you. Psalm 42:1 says, "As the deer pants for streams of water, so my soul pants for you, my God." That longing, that quiet yearning in your spirit has been with you longer than you can remember. You don't just believe in God. You commune with him in the silence of your thoughts, in the choices you make when no one is watching, in the peace that settles over you when everything around you is shaken. Look at Enoch, a man so deeply connected to God that Genesis 5:24 tells us Enoch walked faithfully with God. Then he was no more because God took him away. Enoch didn't just pray occasionally. He walked with God daily so closely that heaven simply welcomed him home. That's the kind of connection the most powerful chosen ones carry. It's not loud, it's not boastful, it's intimate. Think of Brother Lawrence, a humble monk known for his book, The Practice of the Presence of God. He found divine connection not in grand acts, but in washing dishes, turning every simple task into a moment of communion with the Creator. His life became a living testimony that God isn't confined to temples. He dwells wherever a heart remains open. Or consider Malala Yousafzai. When asked where she found the courage to stand against oppression, she spoke not of strategy, but of faith, of a deep-rooted trust in God that silenced fear. Chosen one. This is why you've survived storms that would have drowned others. Because your anchor wasn't in people status or plans. It was in a presence that never left you. How many times have you whispered a prayer and felt immediate peace? How often have you faced impossible situations yet walked through them with a calm that defied logic? That's not just faith. That's intimacy with God. 1 Corinthians 3:16 reminds us, "Do you not know that you are God's temple, and that God's Spirit dwells in you?" You carry that Spirit everywhere you go, and people feel it even if they can't explain it. Your wisdom, your calm, your discernment, it all flows from this connection. This is the greatest sign of all. You don't just visit God in moments of need. You walk with Him in every step, every decision, every breath. And because of that chosen one, you're not only guided, you become a vessel through which heaven touches earth. Now, as you reflect on all these signs, know this: you were never meant to live an ordinary life. You were chosen not just to carry light, but to be light. Let's bring this journey together. You were never ordinary. You were always chosen. Chosen one. You were never ordinary. You were always chosen. Chosen one. Now that you've seen the signs, you know this truth cannot be unseen. You were never here to live a life of quiet survival. You were sent to awaken, to lead, to illuminate paths others are too afraid to walk. Every hardship you've endured, every divine whisper you've heard, every moment of solitude, every vision, every alignment has been heaven's way of reminding you, you are not just chosen, you are trusted, you are powerful, you are called. The world may never fully understand what you carry, but that's because your assignment wasn't given by the world. It was written by God before time began. So I invite you now, don't shrink. Don't second-guess the calling that has echoed in your soul since the beginning. If this message has stirred something deep within you, if you feel the weight of this divine confirmation, declare it. Comment 999 below. Not just as a number, but as a bold affirmation that says, I know who I am. I walk in purpose. I rise in power. And if this message has blessed you, I encourage you to like, subscribe, and share this light with others who may still be searching for their confirmation. Whether you've been silently listening or actively reflecting, know this: your presence here is no accident. I speak this final blessing over you. May your steps be guided by clarity, your heart anchored in peace, and your spirit forever aligned with the one who chose you. Stay blessed, stay powerful, and above all, stay chosen.